The best laid HEX Timoney can fry. Timoney Loosh Traplanet. How are nearly all of us kept here as loosed goy or narcissist shot callers, or hiding trapped in barely surviving mode? Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though, said Robert Frost in a poem 103 years ago. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong, sang Stephen Stills, and For What It's Worth. We're imprisoned by a mass formation psychosis of a hologramic HEX, the egregore that time me is money, that your moments are money, the cage of the matrix construct and the immensely evil false god Kronos has masterfully enslaved us all, or nearly all of us, in this conceptual trap with the cattle prod of the second-hand, falling apart, threadbare, minute hand in the hand of the great trickster Horus, the hour hand, dominating most folks' days. Yes, nature has her cycles, her days and nights, years, rotations, and the ancient Mayans seem to have worked it out and decoded into a spiral art in their calendar system. But they eventually became prey to sacrificing, and our hijacked realm is ruled by the fake, the black magicians, this evil, extremely powerful in the realm of usurpation, and the devout followers of it, the scum who rise to the top. These endless wars, all the way down to your road rage. I gotta get back to work. I have no moments of my own. Will scream under this system of pure slavery and oppression, under the immense weight of this egregore horror flick, egregore film, false self-controlled real eye tie. I have no tie me, 'cause it has bound me into a straight jacket. That's nearly all of us, and if you are one of the few, like I have been, who try to figure out another way, all by yourself, you will just be rewarded with more loneliness and isolation most often. Nearly all of US, in particular, seems to have been built for this kind of goyism, loose extraction. And what happens when you revolt, like the house near the corner of Laurel and Mission? It had a big sign in it that said, "Food, not lawns," with a big, beautiful garden covering up the whole lawn. Well, I met the landlord of that house when he was about 90 years old. And Jayahare took us back there to smoke weed, and he didn't even get mad. He just kind of politely told us not to. And of course, when he died or someone else got a hold of it, they ripped it out like about over half dozen co-op houses in this county with its perfect weather. About 11 moons out of the year in the warming phase of industrial pollution and this cold water paradise. You gotta be a fucking financial slave around here because everybody's doing it. That's the narrative the invisible hand tries to, or does, force on those willing to accept it. When we're not sent to die in a bloody hot war, all of our energy has to be for the box, for cube tech, for the Saturn black cube extraction matrix. Our minds are mostly stolen by this sick, inverted idea, coerced, under threat of being imprisoned or tortured if we don't, or at the best case scenario, left alone to rot. I've got to pay my mortgage, the mortal gauge of what I'm worth for every moment of my life, even though it's an obvious, completely legal theft scam, because the vast majority, like Abrahamic religions, have accepted it. It must be legitimate. Why do you think they built the big columns on the cathedrals, on the Colosseums, when they had the gladiator match, before there was ever the technology of the television or YouTube, and they would send warriors or rebels to fight to their death, and the whole crowd would be full of loosh, extreme, fervent, because the columns, like years of going to college to get a degree, make it seem legitimate, like having a white coat and tons of money in a fat house. It is designed to appear intimidating and really harsh to make it seem extra legitimate. I've got to pay my mortgage or rent, which in another definition means to make a hole in something, to make a hole in all the moments of my existence, especially if I was in a place as epically beautiful as Santa Cruz County, California, or voluntarily give them all to my masters for my entire life, which is what the vast fucking majority are doing. This sacred choicelessness for the harmony of the Decepticons' rule over everything, of the undiscerning financial slaves, or the controllers of this game who are rendered slaves of their ego, another kind of archon introject possession, is a necessity and necessary because almost everyone's doing it, and if they're not doing it, they're going to get in trouble. And if we refuse and don't get caught, we're often bribed to play small, keep quiet, stay an outer accessory on the wheel of samsara with food stamps or welfare checks, get into meth, fentanyl, heroin, or just alcohol and lay on the sidewalk and take the money or just the food and exist to die in a state of addiction, suffering, and torture. And you're doing a service to keep all the good, obedient, hard-working folks to be financial slaves so they don't end up like you. And remain, even if you're not on drugs, if you take the welfare or the food stamps, remain pseudo-happy Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall, bracing in our extreme houseless insecurity not to fall off. Sit on the wall and chill or party all day and smoke weed all day. And that is a life that is one of the most peaceful ways you can pass your existence in a Loosh Farm, it seems. As I entered the Midtown Santa Cruz Homeless Faith Community's shower truck yesterday, the really wonderful and good-natured person who came up with the idea to do a barbecue to get the money for this truck and to put together this really, really good project. The big, elderly, kind Scorpio lesbian guest preacher said to me, "Entree." Then right after that she said, "Entree." I quietly cackled as I shut and locked the door and said in a low tone that no one could hear, I hoped, "Yeah, to your bloodthirsty God, if he gets his way, I'm a Loosh entree." Why is the Wednesday shower truck experience so much worse than the Tuesday version? I mean, it's the same shower truck. Well, this one is in Santa Cruz, and it's on the clock. And it's a really good example of how even if your only interaction with society is to get a shower in a truck, you're far better off to do it in a small town. Because even simply to get a shower, you have to be timed in a city. They will bang and holler if you are a minute late. The Tuesday crew does it in Aptos, and most often the retired dentist and other attendants will not bang or holler in an act of seeming social brilliance in this caged realm. To me, they seem to be more true followers of Yeshua because they actually know us well enough. I mean, I don't know how they would do it in Santa Cruz without being strict, because there's a lot more derelicted, impoverished, and drug addicted people there that they don't know. But even though there's a few at the Aptos like that, they actually know us well enough and trust our inner clock and sense of duration. For example, let's say if I take 17 minutes, they don't bang or worry. It's only that one guy with a grocery cart full of overflowing with all his stuff that goes 40 minutes that they have to look at their fucking clock with. These, in my perspective, most of the guys that do the Tuesday service are more like true ancient Christians, in it but not of it, serving the poor, a really important necessity they're missing from my perspective. They don't have anything to do with the sadistic glee of strictly following the cruel usurper Kronos. Like the one woman who seems to love to make sarcastic comments and rap real loud if you go a second over 15 minutes. which is one of the reasons why I haven't been to the Catholic Church hot shower in 15 years, aside from that I joined gyms and I was in legal boxes a lot of that duration. I was fired from 2 or 3 jobs as a young person for being 5 minutes late. One of them was a job I really liked at the pawn shop, and the guy had hired too many people. Overzealous Aries sun sign. One of them was a pregnant woman who he liked better than me. So he fired me. As this channel testifies, even in situations where I feel forced to act, I love to work. When it comes to music, teaching the truth, learning about and sharing psychology, metaphysical healing, and expansive discernment. I love this work. Yet, as I told the young Christian man who, like the woman on Wednesday who likes to bang after 15 minutes, he loved to bang real loud at 15 minutes. If you don't open the door before that, who was strict and banging on the door one Saturday. I appreciate this shower, but I don't honor Kronos. I'd like to take a piss on his head, I said in a calm voice. No offense, sir, but this God you strictly obey is the one who I'd like to pee on his head. Yet, look at the end of the supposed planet Saturn. The picture on my YouTube channel banner is a NASA photo taken in the early 1980s. And you see, what do you see? A hexagram or a cube. Machinery. Look at the beliefs, beliefs of the Jews, Christians, Muslim, Illuminati, governments, secret societies, fake estate, or what's called real estate, buying and selling the divine Gaia called property, which is really unproper. Look at how hated I've become, hated or ignored that I have become for all of this work, almost 700 videos, for pointing it out. Time is money, is truly the best laid HEX Kronos can cast on all of us. The insanely rampant, endless stress and cancer and herpes simplex inducing conflict oriented, as Chuck Swindoll Jr. called it, fear-based loose trap, plain net, safety blanket of the safety blanket of prosperity, the abundance that comes from sticking the spears of the hands of the Glock in everyone. Because the hands of the clock are swords of the Glock that can and will destroy the quality of all lives here who are forced under it. For the Midtown homeless shower truck community, and the Santa Cruz version in particular, but both of the one in Aptos and Santa Cruz quite strongly possibly, to at least some of the administrators and the people that clean it up. According to one of them told me that over 60% of the people that do the work have been houseless or lived in their vehicle themselves, so they have personal empathy. And to the administrators and partakers, because unless you're on bad drugs, being a houseless person is extremely often lonely. Sitting there socializing while cleaning and waiting seems to be the only moments they can collectively relax and socialize. Most of them can never socialize without drugs taking the center stage, or relax any other moments in the central coast of California, grapes of wrath, financial plantation environment where I have landlord acquaintances who have to work extra side hustles because the damn property tax is so insane. In the slavery, cult, plantation environment they're from. For many folks, everywhere, especially towns and cities on the ocean or beautiful places, the so-called cost of living keeps escalating. And seemingly human type, the happy Hollywood lemmings, just keep on marching off to war, marching off a cliff to get tricked and memory wiped in order to do it all again. Ain't God good? Ain't God the faker, the paternal, the father, child eater, almighty? Isn't he good? No, he's not good. He's good at establishing and whipping our asses into maintaining his hell system. You know, terrifying us even if we're not in the Abrahamic cults, to stay financial slaves and then get tricked and memory wiped in order to do it all again as more brutalized financial slaves over and over and over in perpetuity forever if it's up to him. If we don't remember to individually and collectively reassert our sovereignty on every level, this truly rotten, coercive insanity keeps going and recycling them. And until we remove or destroy the fake-ass Death Star we call the moon, this is what we have to look forward to after we leave our flesh suits, if we're dumb enough or we can't help it and we go into the tunnel of light, the tunnel of neon hell. It sure looks that way. Even and especially those souls who are not NPCs or humans 2.0, because if what studies have shown are true, they won't even have to go. They'll just get downloaded into another body since they're already robots. But what the Gnostics called pneumatic or psychic souls, the actual real souls, whether pulled into the cult or not, will suffer progressively in this hijacked realm, because secretly, deep down, or even worse, and amplified by the fact that many in the majority are terrified to do the inner work and look at the truth of the big picture, even though secretly deep down they know they are slaves whose lives have been stolen by the beast. In other words, hey, it's real obvious when they have to work 3 jobs for their place. Unless they love their jobs, which would be the only way to, come into peace and harmony in this insane realm, socially, or do great or small things in them to help others or serve awakening with a conscience, a chance, or sense of care, unless they resuscitate and resurrect and actually truly bring back their sense of care. The problem with the self-help, ascension teachers, and other popular gurus of healing is it became the new cage movement. The better salespersons they became, the more money extracted for tips, the more of a narcissist cult many of them have become. The more they fit into this profoundly sick society, the more rewarded they are. The more they've psychologically trapped themselves, the more they'll get normal folks who want to awaken to remain in the financial chains. Just as the brilliant Marina Karlova just did a video about Eckhart Tolle, who wrote the book The Power of Now, and how he sold this ancient Buddhist concept of staying in the now to people in the financial chains and never mentioned that. Let go and let God. It's all your fault. Everything is your fault. So you have to change yourself. Because according to the hijacked version of the Serenity Prayer and from Mark Passio's perspective, you can't change anything else. That's the fake version. The world is a perfect hell. If you're enlightened, you'll be in heaven on earth. No, balderdash. You'll be entrenched further in delusion. You'll be more stuck in the fucking mode of delusion than the Goy slaves. You'll be in the helite, the ultimate delusion, because it's collective narcissism. And if you study that, you know pretty well by now that the higher they are on the scale, and the 1% robber barons certainly are high on that scale, that means there's no chance that they will ever change. Ever to get out of it. That's why you see these new cage grifters who are full of vast amounts of grandiosity that just keeps growing with every book they sell, with every conference ticket they sell. But there is nothing to get them to be socially respectful in equal measures. There is nothing to get them to awaken to respecting the oneness for real. Just a fake version of a hierarchy. This is why I might in the future write books and sell them, but if I do, I will certainly most often loathe the brown nosers and a lot of these platforms I'll go on to speak, and the love bombs from the greedy capitalist online middleman grifters who place themselves in a position of making money off self-help books. Because it's a lot of work not to be a hero, but to serve awakening from the money pit we call a world, from the black hole of hell we call hijacked robber barons control capitalism. The invisible hand of the market that has no limits placed upon it, while it limits everyone else who's not greedy as fuck in every way possible, up to starvation and imprisonment if you don't obey it. Oh, how righteous they are. Oh, how greed is just the highest and purest virtue known to man, and how many humans really, really feel that whatever the greedy say, the more greed they have, the more financial power and control they have, the more stacks of billions of dollars they have amassed, means they are purely righteous and can do no wrong, and we must obey every order, every rule, every mandate that they make up off the whim of their archontically possessed domes. Nobody has a moment to consider the big picture if they play by the rules, especially in a beautiful place, especially in the coast of California or the coast of anywhere in an industrialized nation that's beautiful. Nobody ever has a moment to consider the big picture. At least the vast majority of them have got to get back to work. They can't consider the big picture, the Loosh Farm, or even face the horrific fact of the memory wipes at all. If they're stuck in fucking survival in this black hole beast. Yet, we've heard about the Epstein files. We know there is no age of consent for the 1%. Much worse, we know some of them have even eaten babies and drinking adrenochrome, or at least there's a lot of evidence that shows that, and do child sacrifice rituals for their evil ET or interdimensional false self-gods who are at the top of the pyramid. They might even consider the 1% to be their lapdogs, the way the 1% consider the mainstream legacy media, the big newspapers and all the 6 o'clock newscasters, anchors to the oblivion underworld, to be their lapdog puppets. Most humans are also enslaved by the archon introject false self voices in our heads, always streaming in those derogatory loud commands. I got to get back to work. I'm afraid. For me, I got to put it off. I can't do it now. I have to get back to work. Ironically, I'm not actually opposed to money or capitalism in a clear version. If money is to survive at all or exist in the future, it will have to be the opposite of stablecoin, and we'll have to go back to before paper fiat was invented and forced, and before the FED was illegally created. You know, gold and silver coins, money that's printed or money that's issued by the USA, not a bank in England. You know, in the future, it will really be the opposite of stablecoin, central bank digital currency, and Agenda 2030, if it exists at all. Anarcho-capitalism is the only possible solution for money. Or, in other words, taxless money. Money that the big boss have no cut in, no control over. Taxless societies when you look at what your tax dollars go for, it's the only rational solution if you still want to have money. And this will more than likely be gold or silver coins or even barter systems with no vampire rich people controlling it all. Of course, there will be no free money for the poor and sick, no food stamps or welfare, more than likely. And my personally assigned Archon has recently loosed me through a mixture of geoengineering and, very subtly encouraging me to chicken out on the shadow work. Because to do it, like with most folks, requires facing a tremendous amount of horrific anguish. Looking at how every single choice I could make that's different involves a punishment or a payment of loose or extracting my energy through stress and drama, through causing me to be brushing near or close to violence or close to harm, self-harm, because that's built in to most choices. And as a person with Mercury in Capricorn retrograde, which may be why I seem to be on the autistic spectrum, seems to be that I tend to think around every issue and think more than, some people think more than necessary, but I'll look at every problem around an issue before I make a choice. And sometimes some moments it takes me a while, probably too long. So it may be the fear, as I say, on a very rare occasion is protecting you or me. Or it could be, not facing that part of my shadow. Through the same mechanism in all. Like I was a David Wilcock in reverse. My community only growing thus at a snail's pace. I still continually improve, even if I have moments of regression or setbacks. I still move forward, even if it was, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, In isolation, still, yet not in communication with enough folks. It was like for a week or so, I fell back into hell deeper through the worst Sagittarius trait, procrastination. The most deeply pathological and mentally and emotionally, and then slowly physically, subtly suicidal version of denial. And of course, my lame-ass excuse is I don't want the dangerous tortures of driving a car, flying, taking the Amtrak or Greyhound, facing the madness of an unfamiliar place in all the different multivarious petty tyrants that are more than likely embedded in all these situations to get their narcissistic supply and feed the maggot brain archon parasites some of my loose, knowing that that's pretty much a factor in almost every situation. I suffer sometimes to a tragic fault through procrastination to minimize suffering, to minimize loose extraction, which can definitely backfire if I take it too far. Facing the madness of an unfamiliar place. Yet, the irony in this is, instead of going into the darkness like that, I must remember as a Sagittarian, or Ophiuchus, I can rapidly in days feel at home in nearly anywhere decent, in any decent place. The problem with in-town suites is most of them are in large cities. And cities are at the root of the rot of the Timoney HEX. They are extremely stressful for just about everyone, and they are massive loose generation stations, obviously. And soon, I must accept myself in a new phase. Yeah, let go of my Chiron line here in SoCal, California. Let go of this extremely, ridiculously, profoundly, openly financial slaving part of the realm called the coast of California. I was going to go to Albuquerque because it's cheap and it's, the only other in-town suites on a, roughly 24-hour bus ride from here aside from Tucson, Arizona. So it's the only option that's only one night on the Amtrak of suffering. But I was watching Nick Johnson's video, and the reason why I really think it might be a really stupid idea is because it's now called a war zone. It's one of the 20 most violent towns in the whole planet, or whole whatever the fuck it is. I'm considering Tallahassee to access the warm sea legally without being figuring out the insanity of rentals as they normally happen, or going into a covert narcissist trauma bond, which I don't want to do. But again, these hotel apartment rooms are a deal because these cities will be full of crime risks. And yes, I do have the faith shield to protect me to a large degree. Of course, this is also the surface level cliche trade-off you have. For me, I could stay in Santa Cruz and not be a slave and be able to exist if I stay in a campsite and have very little chance of, making friends or lovers. Whereas if I move to a violence-ridden and drug-filled big city, I can afford a hotel apartment and be in a place where I can get a sunbath or even a warm ocean bath around criminals and violence. This is the cliche trade-off I'm offered in 2026 in the USA. Yet, of course, I'd love to live in Santa Cruz County, even though it's extremely haunted and blessed. And I've also been here over 20 years with all that history. And then as the scorpionic, moronic, my Uranus and Scorpio retrograded in my zodiac birth chart, my Chiron line, I've often felt like I'm in a rut. It's not just a rut from the curse of Santa Cruz or from remaining a hermit in this beautiful camp. It's mainly a feeling of being in a rut because almost everybody, especially those I'd befriend around this county, are financial slaves. And if they grew up in, Los Angeles, New York City, Seattle, San Jose, or San Francisco, they think it's normal. They don't see anything wrong with them. Even some of them that watch these videos and still do it. And they, in a conversation, they'll agree with me. Yeah, I'm a financial slave. And then they, because they have kids or grandkids or they're used, whatever reason they come up with, it just seems normal. It's normalized slavery madness. And now it's been, being normalized where I grew up in South Carolina because that's the new hip place to go. Because since nearly everyone else around here in Santa Cruz, California has accepted it for a century, or rather for 235 years, since they cut off the heads, since they killed off every indigenous person who wouldn't convert to Catholicism and grow a garden for the conquistadores and the priests. They've been under the yoke of the fake, inverted, vampire Catholic Christianity since then, forcibly trauma bonded and Stockholm syndrome to the devil for 235 years in this community, and it doesn't look like it's letting up anytime soon, any moment soon. Notice how I never want to say that word, because it's a fake. It now seems legitimate to them and normal. It is not legitimate to be forced to pay to every moment of your life to have a shelter in a place where you were born, in a beautiful, exquisite realm where you were born. It's collectively agreed on. It's a collectively agreed on psychosocial, emotional, and mental assault and financial bondage. I honestly don't know what the peaceful answer is, because if, say, 1 million Californians followed me or this idea and organized and stopped paying rent, not only would they probably shoot or imprison me, it would get, infiltrated and taken over and repurposed into something violent or harmful by the dark side. What we need is for everyone on the whole place to stop being slaves, or more than 50% of all humans. I know that's an extreme tall order, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people in the disclosure and new cage community have fantasies of physical ETs coming down to shock us out of slavery, and very few of them seem to even remember, or not enough of them seem to remember, that they're interdimensional parasitic ETs designed the slavery system. I really don't know what the best solution is, but the slave-based matrix needs, and it begs, to be shut down and destroyed. Because being a Loosh Farm is the number one attribute it has, causing people to die of cancer, to die of stress, traffic accidents, is a major feature. Not the earth, or whatever shape it is, the old divinity, Gaia Sophia, the physical thing I'm sitting on, who has also been extracted from, loosed, and enslaved, largely, the vast fucking majority of it. That's what fake estate is. That's what real estate actually is. Not even the respectful essences in human flesh sacks are exempt from this. Those evil wizards pulling the levers of control, those wizards of the Oz prison, the white-collar cartels we call the Khazarian Mafia, and the lying, law-breaking government. If they were all like Thomas Massey, I might not be an anarchist. But the hierarchy we're under literally has no respect at all, and we know it. That's the thing. Anyone who really looks at the news, or even the fucking mainstream media, anyone who really looks at what's happening, the stories, the fake narratives, it's very plain to see. There is no respect involved in any of it. So guerrilla garden when you can. Reject those Archon interjects. We certainly need to move further away from cities, not just from the pollution of the air, which can be really harmful, and the potential of violence, but because most of them were set up to become 15-minute smart cities, digital enslavement camps and control grids, not camps, but digital prisons that everything is monitored and controlled as they cave in under the controlled demolition plans of the new old world hoarders. Look at the symbols on the US dollar bill. The Illuminati pyramid with the eye on top. The eagle. The open black magic operational system of the Hellite warmongers. Order out of chaos. And the statement of inverted oneness of the secret society control freaks. Intention of the filthy plutocrat patriarchies. Out of many, one. One people, one God, which is money, which is Kronos. One Amazon, one Walmart, one YouTube, one fake book. Hey, as long as it's a, as long as it's a trust, as long as it has complete control. One, you name it, as long as it's greedy and tyrannical and feeding off enslavement, suffering and misery. It's made in the image of God. There's a reason why corporations have more rights than individual humans. The reason is because the loose extraction legacy of the Timoney, Traplanet, is a fake reality. Real estate with no limits is wrong estate. I mean, if you didn't have to pay any rent in a shitty town and it was $50 or $20, $30, $40 for a hotel in a sexy beach town, I might not complain. I might say, hey, it's okay. But with no ceiling, no glass ceiling, no limits on what you're going to pay, it's just wrong. It's just plain wrong. Who can limit Kronos as he continues to eat us all and, in escalating his plans, eat all of our natural human rights? Is greed the only feature that Saturn, in its hijacked form, won't limit? How much more evil, filth, suffering, war, and forced slavery do you need to see that this Matrix is a horror shit show movie that shits on us all? In all honesty, there is no short supply of good-natured humans or even artists or musical artists, as Quinn the Eskimo said, Thomas Quinn. It's just they're mostly trauma bonded to financial slavery. So their art or music is what they're told is kosher or it's allowed to be, or they simply remain financial slaves because they haven't had a moment or a thought or haven't heard of inner shadow work or the possibility of freedom from this system. Can I do the painful shadow work necessary to be in community? ? knowing the dark side, we'll attempt to infiltrate and destroy it and still do our best to build a real respectful place. Well, that's what I'm attempting to start with here on this YouTube channel. And so comment and let me know what you think and help me to build this into a respectful virtual online YouTube community. We all have to destroy the cluster B movie monsters. The cluster B movie monsters in our psyches, if they're in there, first, or the community will become a B movie remake. In my mind cosmology, it says, I am guided by the power of timelessness. What does that mean? In my best music and my best talks, I've been able to leave the filthy system of Kronos out of it, to transcend it momentarily. Look around at nature before and after smog, chemtrails, and war plundering. It's abundant. It's often exquisitely beautiful. Look at your cell phone, your laptop, your solar panels, and permaculture designs. As I've said, all these gadgets, and giving us these gadgets, they let the cat out of the bag. They've given us tools. We have all the tools and resources, and you add all the psychology lessons on YouTube. We've had abundance, all the resources and abundance we could possibly need. Then we're given instruction manuals, religions, and governments that constantly reedify and reiterate and insist that we use these tools all in the wrong way to keep the prison going, to keep us all sacrificial lambs for their loose-sucking, moral coward, maggot-brained, mind control expert, false self junior gods. If you're still watching this and it's almost been a whole hour and you're enjoying this and you haven't already, make sure you subscribe or follow me on Odyssey, Rumble, or BitChute. Give me a thumbs up and let me know what you thought about this, really. Do you have the courage and discipline to choose differently? To choose freedom? Like the frogs in the pot analogy, as the globalist, capitalist, pig, humanoid, blue-blooded monsters and their 1% robber baron lapdogs and all the idiots under them turn up the heat, will you and I jump out and finally live outside of the hell system I dub the best laid HEX Timoney can fry? The soulless Timoney Loosh Traplanet.